Ready to go live and we're live. Welcome to the Commissioner Evaluation Show. This is me just doing what I love to do, talking to some awesome fantasy football players in the fantasy football world. And today we'll talk to my friend in the fantasy community, my friend in real life, and my foe in my home fantasy football league, Nick Skrip. We'll talk to Nick about his likes, his dislikes, some of the settings he prefers and leagues he plays in, things he'd like to do, his commissioners to do in his leagues, some players he likes late. We'll hit some current events. Then, as usual, we'll evaluate a team to see what Nick recommends to either rebuild or remodel the roster. So I had the pleasure of sitting here with Nick Skrip, which is a good friend of mine. It's a pleasure to do these shows with guys who I'm comfortable with or consider friends with, or tapped a couple glasses with, had some beers with, had a good time with, and he's one of the regulars at the at his bar or my bar. So it's or the bars around here by our house. So thanks for coming on, Nick. Thank you very much. Tell me about yourself, where the Twitter machine can find you, and what you do in the fantasy community.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me on here. Obviously, me and you, we just hung out this past weekend, so we see each other when we can, and it's always fun to talk football. So to get in front of a camera here and actually record it, I think is always good for a show, especially to seeing us having a couple of drinks and talking football seems to flow out too easily. But you can find me on Twitter at P2W Fantasy. I try to drop content on a daily basis there, and I try to be active, dropping content in a variety of forms. So like there'll be days where I'll have like a thread of something, and then I'll have like a short video, I'll have a live stream, or I'll have a written article, and just try to mix things up. I'm employed through Fantasy Points, where I do some live shows for them. I write for Bear Goggles On. My podcast, P2W Fantasy, is a member of the Fantasy Points Media Group. So as far as the fantasy community, I'm pretty active, and I try to stay active as a content creator. So I'm happy to not have to write a show sheet and prepare for a show. So thanks again for having me on.
It is pretty nice just jumping on with people and kind of having a good time, especially when it's people you're comfortable with. So that's
Absolutely.
great. Tell me about a day in the life of one Nick Skrip, who is the Energizer Bunny, as far as I'm concerned, from the alarm clock in the morning to hitting the pillow at night, because you are a man of many hats, and getting up in the morning and P2W fit and soccer, and some guys just do this for a living. They just do fantasy football for a living, and
Yeah.
you are rocking it like you just do fantasy football for a living. But tell everybody about what a day in the life of Nick Skrip is like.
Yeah. So Monday through Friday, my alarm is off at 4:30. I get up, typically just like let the dogs out. Then I head to the gym down the street, get a good workout in, literally 6 days a week, sometimes five. From there, shoot straight out to Hinsdale, which is about a 30-minute drive from the gym. I work 7 to 3. I sneak in content when I can over there. So usually I get an hour break. I do stuff at night to kind of prepare for certain things, but I sneak fantasy football content in during the day, 7 to 3, during my office hours. But I'm usually pretty busy, so I think some people think that I'm like messing around at work or I'm not very busy, but I'm pretty busy at this school district I work for. And now this time of year, I have soccer. I oversee a whole program, so I'm the varsity head coach, but I oversee 3 teams. So I leave my office at work. I go pick up my daughter so I can see her for a small window. And then in that small window afterwards, I go to soccer, coach soccer 4:30 to 6:30 every day, unless there's a game. Get home at night and try to do some more content after my daughter goes to sleep. So I always try to make sure that I'm getting time with my daughter during this time of year and spending time with her. And then when she's asleep, do extra fantasy stuff. So I'm pretty busy, pretty much 4:30 to probably like 9:39 at night. And I'm not, I'm preaching to the choir because I know a lot of people listening to this and yourself and others are very busy with family and work and everything, but pretty loaded this time of year up until soccer ends. So that's a day in the life right now. I don't have a voice right now. It's not because I am sick or anything. It's just I've been screaming at my soccer guys the last couple of days in some tight games. We're doing pretty well right now, so that's the reason for the raspiness.
It's funny because my wife works second shift for most of my kids' young life. So it was I go to work, pick them up from the babysitter, go drop 'em, feed them something, drop them off the babysitter again, go coach football or basketball or t-ball, or I even coached cheerleading for one year when the coach quit. Just kind of a I finally get to sit down now, and I'm finally making time for myself. My kids are older to do fantasy football stuff, but
Yeah.
it's going to take a while for me to catch up on all these spreadsheets and all the other stuff that you whizzes do that kind of bury me in the fantasy football world right now. But I'm getting there. This dinosaur is coming along. So,
hey, quick question: Are you ever thinking about getting back into the cheer coaching, or was that just a one and done?
it was definitely one and done. It was fun. I tell you what, at the end of every season, I don't know how many people actually coach football teams or coach things, but at the end of every season, you had these kids and you see them come in, especially football, I think, because I have such a passion for football. You see these kids come in and they don't know how to put their jock strap on. They bring it to practice, they put it over their face, or they don't know how to put their helmet on. They're like, how does this go? Or, don't have no idea how to do shoulder pads or anything. And when you have these kids for an entire season, from August all the way to winter, and when they finally leave and you molded these kids into something that is what you wanted them to be on, because your job as a coach is you're not trying to win the Super Bowl. You're not playing the Bears next year. Your job is to make these kids better for the next guy who's better than you at coaching. Your job is to move them forward, to make them a better person, and just teach them the things that other people have taught you throughout your life. And it's super awesome. But cheerleading was one of the ones that I never did it before, and it was so exciting. And it's all girls, so it really did. My heartstrings were kind of tugged when it was over with. I got all the presents and flowers and stuff like you give to a girls coach, so it was pretty fun, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was great. So, when did you start playing fantasy football? And are you more of a redraft or dynasty guy?
I'd have to really think about like the actual year that I started. I can't, I know, you and I have talked about when you started playing and how long you've been playing. I know some guys that are same age as me have been playing there, since they've been 15 years old. So I don't have a massive track history of playing, but I would say that as soon as I started playing, I was like all in, because I'm just like very a weird person when it comes to actually doing and participating in things. Like I never just like kind of do something, kind of like jump into it. Like I'm either all into something or I'm not. So, I joined a fantasy league that my brother started with some friends. And then the next league, the next year was like a couple more leagues. And then out of nowhere, like my brother Anthony, who got me started with fantasy, tried convincing me for the longest time. And I was always like, no, I don't think I can, because I'm a college soccer player. They were against any sort of sports betting or anything that had to do with sports and money. And I was like, no, no, no. And then he's like, yeah, as soon as you got, into it, out of nowhere, a couple years later, you're a content creator. So love playing fantasy. I love both, in all honesty. I love redraft. I love dynasty. I think I'd probably lean dynasty just because you get that like Madden mentality of hey, like I can like start a career mode with this team. I can like build a team from scratch, get it to what I want it to be, and just continue to, shape it over the years. So I think that aspect of it is pretty fun. So I'll probably lean dynasty, but I'm not against redraft at all. It's redraft season right now. Everybody who's a redraft player is playing, and, that's kind of like the reach of an audience, what you're, focusing in on. But love both. Probably lean dynasty. I'm in a keeper league, 2 keeper leagues, and I don't mind those either, because it's kind of a mix, best of both worlds with that. But yeah, I guess I'd say I lean dynasty just a little bit.
I was in 19 leagues last year, and I said that's it. This year, I'm not doing any more redraft. I'm done with redraft. I'm just sticking to my dynasty teams, and one by one, redraft league. One by one, redraft league. Next thing you know, I just got into like 8 more redraft leagues. They're all in-person leagues around here kind of stuff. And they're fun, showing up, drinking beers on my days off, drafting a team with my buddies. And then next thing you know, I'm at 21 leagues again. I just counted before the show because I knew you were going to ask. But I'm like, this is crap. I don't know how I do this every year. I'm just going to say no. But it's so hard to say no, especially when some of the leagues are guys you've known for a long time. And they're they're fun. It is what it is. So
especially when you can like you said, if somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, we need 2 more guys, we're going to be in person in my garage, having some beers, and we got a draft board, stuff like that. Like, you as a fantasy fan, it's so hard to pass on something like that, because you love playing. And then if you can, take your passion and make it a hangout and almost like a party. Like I had a redraft like party in reality, not super long ago, and that was one of the funnest times I've had the last couple months. That's just like the art of fantasy football. You just getting together with friends and enjoying something similar and competing. So it's tough to turn down leagues, especially if they're in person.
I always swore that I'd never be a dynasty guy. I was happy with redraft, and then I started doing franchise mode on Madden, and that's kind of what set. I'm like, man, this would be cool to do a fantasy football
Yeah.
league like this. And somebody said you want to join a dynasty league. I'm like, I'll try it, but it's not for me. And next thing you know, redraft for me is like a horse race. I mean, I can give my mom, my aunt, my daughter, a bunch of people a sheet now for fantasy pros, and almost anybody can compete just marking off names and picking the next guy. It's kind of later rounds you is where you make a difference, not in the early rounds, but it's just it's more for the fun than it is anything else as far as skill for redraft. Now, Dynasty, when you got 12 team, 30-man rosters or 14 team, 32-man rosters or with all the rest of the extras,
Mhm.
it is kind of like more of a research, especially during rookie draft time. That's when it's really fun to me. You have to do
Yeah.
research all year long to hit that rookie draft, and that's when it becomes great.
Yep. I agree.
Um, this is a question I had in here. Tell me about a guy who played soccer his whole life, just walked into the fantasy football community and started killing it with content. I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit now, but what's your secret to like transitioning from? Let's just say somebody wanted to join, was a football guy their whole life and wanted to join Dynasty baseball, or was a vice versa, a football guy who wanted to join soccer, a soccer league, or anything else like that. What would you suggest to somebody to make that transition?
For me personally, I still coach the game. I've coached in the past at a decently high level. I coach college soccer. I coach club soccer for over a decade, and I played Division II college soccer. So I played at a pretty decent level as well. But for me, like I think it was just like a break almost. Like after college soccer, which almost felt like the military at times, the program we played in. Um, I think just like being competitive in a different sports sense that stepped away from what you did for 4.5 years. I was there an extra half year. I redshirted, but 4.5 years of just like nonstop two-a-days and weightlifting and conditioning and 8-hour road trips, like all this stuff that was so soccer focused, like to play a game where obviously you don't have the toll physically, but also you just like or taking a break from soccer, I think it was refreshing to a degree. Like I don't even play as much anymore. Like I play with my guys in my high school. I jump into scrimmages and stuff, but for me, I needed a bit of a break from soccer. So always like football growing up, played the football video games, and me and my brother would play with kids across the street and things like that. But to step away from soccer and focus in on a different sport, some might say like, well, what do you know about football? But most of those people might have only played football at like freshman, sophomore level of high school. I know you played college ball yourself, but I'd say with just anything, like if you want to try something different, especially for fantasy, uh, whatever made you successful at any sort of fantasy game in the past, go that same route. So for instance, like I've been pretty good at fantasy basketball throughout time. And it just has to do with like watching games, doing a little bit of research and following some people online that know what they're talking about. And I tried out fantasy hockey one year. I don't play it anymore, but I just did the same thing, did a little bit of research, found some people online that knew what they were talking about, watched some games. So I feel like it's just like diving into things the same way you would dive into things you've been successful at before. So if you're listening and you're a big, football guy and you're thinking about baseball, same fantasy football mentality, just to the baseball lens. And that's kind of how I look at that.
Here's this my neighbor Joe Castleman over here. Look at these two sexy gents talking football tonight. I just called Joe this morning, and I am like, Joe, next year we are not watching any sports clips or any highlight film, anything. I sat there and I did all this research all off season, and I'm like, Joe, we should watch this guy or watch this guy. He's like, yeah, who else you got? Who else you got? And he traded for like the whole second round pick, and every dude that we watch on YouTube, especially Damian Pierce was like his first pick, and that was
Oh
my
yeah.
guy. And he's like, oh, just I'm gonna take. He took Damian Pierce. I'm like, he's like, what am I supposed to do? Make my team worse for you? I'm like,
He did well in our draft. I know he loaded up. I think in I think in the second round. I think that's the draft you might be referring to, because I feel like I traded up in the first with Joe, but I sent like a couple second round picks, and the picks that he made were pretty solid values if you look back to now. So
I can't believe Joe traded with anybody, but I remember that one trade he made in the history of trading, in the history of his fantasy football life. Yes, I do remember that one trade.
I'm just so convincing.
Oh, Joe, I hate you. So what's your favorite Sunday afternoon munching food when you're glued to the TV watching Scott Hansen on Red Zone?
So I will say I'm a big and it's okay, it's nothing special, but I'm a big if I'm having people over, I go get a crave case. So White Castle crave case. I'm not like, all in White Castle and that's my favorite thing to eat, but I typically host. I know you host as well sometimes, but that's like one of the easiest things to put out there that never goes like untouched because at some point people having some drinks, watch football, they see burgers on, a countertop and it's an easy sell. So maybe not my favorite, but that's my go-to if I'm hosting like that. That's going to be on the countertop. Like 20 something bucks. I'm done. Everybody else bring your own things, and I'll snack on Miller Lights and other things throughout the day as well.
Yeah, and I tell you what, those things get better as the night goes on. At 2 a.m, White Castle hamburgers taste better than they did when they were fresh at 4:45.
You know
So,
how that goes.
what's your favorite hobby now, and what was it before you started playing fantasy football, or before when you didn't play soccer?
So it's corny. It's going to be corny to say it, but I mentioned it earlier, and we've joked around about it, but working out because I don't get tons of time to like I used to play video games and play like FIFA and Madden and stuff, and I used to like I don't know like write different things and like a long time ago. Like I used to have like little hobbies that just didn't carry over, but like being busy, the hobby is just working out, and it's just like getting the gym in the morning and getting in a workout. And it sounds corny, like I said before. My profile picture on Twitter, I'm sitting there like pretending to flex and shit stuff. But I think that to me is my favorite hobby because it's the one time where like all I'm doing is like stuff for me that and nothing else matters at the time. Like I don't have to worry about anything that's going on with, friends or anything, any issues. I don't have to worry about work stuff. I don't have to worry about soccer. I don't have to worry about fantasy content. Nothing matters in that like 1 hour window every day of just like going to the gym and like lifting stuff and just focusing on, not dropping a weight on my face and stuff like that. So it's a hobby. It's a part of my daily routine, but like mentally, I like need that so bad every day. Just like that one little window where nothing in the world matters besides like just doing that. So that's my favorite hobby, even though it's corny to say, but I need it.
It's not corny at all. I know you go to that place somewhere by us. I go to this place
Yeah.
that says it's spelled BAR instead of GYM. It's kind of the same thing, but
I've seen that place before.
I try to hit there once in a while to get my mind clear.
Yeah.
It is. But what would you say to yourself? Where do you see yourself in 5 years in this fantasy football community?
I started in 2020 in the space, pretty sure 2020, and I started off as a guy just writing articles, and I was like, hey, it'd be super cool if like anybody read an article that I wrote about fantasy football. And then it turned into like starting to collaborate a little bit. I was just like a logo at the time, P2W Fantasy. I made it in, a Word document and just kind of like spiraled into a lot of different things and like doing different pieces of content and growing in the space, from a follower perspective and getting opportunities with Fantasy Points, which is a brand I respect a lot. But 5 years from now, I want to do everything I'm doing now, just with a much bigger audience. I want people when they think about fantasy football that I'm like a top 5 to 7 name that comes to mind. I know that's like kind of maybe that's like shooting too high and stuff like that, but I just want people to know like, hey, if I need fantasy football advice, I'm going to go look at Nick Skrip stuff. And regardless of what that is at the time, I'm going to continue to still do the things that I've done my entire life in this space, as far as being a content creator. And I want to continue to be diverse and like not just be a writer and not just be a podcaster, but do a lot of different things, but continue to grow, stick to my brand of being myself and not letting myself go. And again, just trying to be a guy that people commonly look to for fantasy football advice.
I think you're gonna nail this off. You already had 11,000 followers or something. It's crazy how fast you've grown. But I think this off season, now that you've got so many followers, so many people are gonna share your stuff. You're gonna explode this year, Nick. Because on top of that, everything you do is like, it's not made for. It's made for everybody. It's made for the first year guy that just joined his first fantasy football league to somebody who's been this, like myself, who's been in here, for 20 years. You break things down in a way that everybody can understand, everybody appreciates, and it's different. It's different. It's better. It's unique, and it's you, and that's just being you. It's
Appreciate
got
it.
to be, it's awesome to see how you've grown and what's going on and how you got it. If you had a chance to if you had to spend 2 minutes with yourself at 18 years old in your high school graduation, 2 minutes, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, that's tough. I would say one of the things for sure would just be like hardest worker in the room mentality with everything you do, because you'll never know who's paying attention to what you're doing. You'll never know who's listening. You'll never know who's taking notes. So not to say that I didn't do that in the past, but I feel like I've never had somebody like overemphasize that. It was just kind of something I kind of grew into. But I would say hardest worker in the room at all times with everything you do. Put your name on everything you do in life, because I feel like sometimes people go through, some motions and stuff, like, and sometimes you get caught up in going through the motions where like that was the one time somebody was paying attention to something you were doing, or that was the one time you might have left an impression on somebody, and things like that, for just you being a person, you being a worker, whatever. So hardest person in the room mentality, leave your name on everything you do. I think that's the one thing that stands out. I can look back and forewarn myself for certain things in life, but I think I'll just leave it at that.
Joe said, "This is how you're gonna get followers." Joe said, "I only follow Nick for the workout videos on Twitter." So
There we go. I just put one today. Who knows if it was even heavy, but I looked at the camera and I was just like grunting, just to like for scenic effect and stuff. But I haven't got anybody in a while that made fun of me for doing that stuff. I'm sure it's annoying to some people, but I always say this, and I'm not a BSer. I'm not a BSer. Like, I know I work out every day. I'm married. My wife knows I work out every day. So I'm not trying to impress anybody at the end of the day. But I've had like literally like 75 to 100 people throughout time in DMs talking about like working out or fitness and whatever, on all different levels. So like if I post something and like 100 people hate it, but 2 people are like, "Hey man, like that made me want to go do it tomorrow," then it was worth it to me. So that's why I post that stuff. And I'm not a BSer. Like, that's exactly why I post that stuff.
you were just bragging about you were like 175 now or 225.
Yeah,
How
getting big.
getting big? It's paying off, Nick. I mean,
Creatine. Yeah,
you're inspiring a lot of people with those videos. So I mean, people may bust your balls or joke about it, whatever. But
yeah.
it is, when people see you working out and getting up, especially on the days nobody wants to get up. Some days you feel good,
No,
but the majority of days you don't. You feel like laying in bed and press the snooze your alarm clock. It's tough to get up every day and do it. But you're someone who's doing it, so it's much appreciated, and you inspire a lot of people. So
all worth it.
the last couple of days, it's an interesting day to be on a podcast here, because I get the luxury of seeing all of the latest roster cuts. And so I'm going to go real fast, team by team. Stop me anywhere you got some insight or anything. Some of these are pretty obvious cuts, or guys that most people never even heard of. So I tried to pick out just a handful of guys from each team. Keep it short and simple. What's the Bears cut? Daz Newsome. Bengals, nobody really and of important. The Bills cut OJ Howard. He was released by the They gave him $3.195 million just to go away. So that's crazy. Pat hold on. That punter, Pat Ariza, and then Duke Johnson. That Ariza situation, I'm not really sure that that was more. I don't think they would have cut him. He's an excellent punter, but off-field issues are very important. Especially when it comes to stuff he did. But that only
I
time will
will
tell.
say, not to cut you off, I will say with OJ Howard, I didn't know what his role was going to be like on the Bills. I don't know, what kind of target share he was going to have, but that's been one guy like historically I've always rooted for, because he like came out of college and he had like a little window of time in Tampa Bay where he was just like this monster athletic tight end. And it was unfortunate he had the Achilles tear, but I always root for OJ Howard. If I had like a list of guys, like no matter what, I'll root for him. I don't know if I want him in fantasy. I think he's one of them.
I'm pretty sure that a lot of people have, when him and Joku and those guys were coming out, they were like the original Kyle Pittses, or these freak athletes. It was like, but they just, Pitts is putting it together right now. He's only done it for a year or so, but hopefully it goes on for a long time. But everybody thought those would be, the players that the Njokus and the OJ Howards, but sometimes this is why, it is what it is. So
Yep, you're
that's,
right.
people's careers get ended shortly. Duke Johnson, I don't know why this guy, he is a lot of people's favorite player. Not really sure why he goes from team to team to team to team, but he's just not panning out somewhere. Broncos quarterback Josh Johnson. Browns cut Rosen. Quarterback Josh Rosen. That was everybody kind of saw that coming. Buccaneers caught Tyler Johnson. Immediately, I traded in 2 leagues to get Tyler Johnson from people. I hope he ends up on the Bears.
Interesting. Yeah.
There's a handful of places that I hope that he ends up on. So I took a stab. I traded Matt Breida to get Tyler Johnson. I thought that was a steal. So
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I feel like from a dynasty perspective, a lot of people have been hanging on to Tyler Johnson. I feel like he's a guy like you're not, a year ago you probably weren't like, oh, like pushing super hard, maybe yourself, but maybe not others, like pushing super hard to go get him. But if you were a manager that had him, there was never that point in your mind where you're just like, I gotta sell him right now because there wasn't that big window of like, oh, he's worth something I can, capitalize on. But we always thought in Tampa he would have some sort of relevance. And then they went and, drafted Darden. Then they brought in, obviously, in the past, like you got the Godwin Mike Evans combo, went and got Russell Gage. Now they went and got Julio Jones. So it just wasn't going to work out with him. But hopefully we'll see him land somewhere, like you said, like a Bears offense that just really needs anybody breathing.
yeah, it's Cardinals, nobody in no particular. Chargers, nobody in particular. Chiefs, Josh Gordon, Derek Gore. That's they're not huge losses. The Colts, Philip Lindsay. I thought a guy who zero career fumbles in his life. I mean, I'm not sure why someone in an offense just to get if they're winning games, someone that can hold the ball and kill the clock. Why wouldn't you take your chance on a Philip Lindsay?
I was actually confused to why they why the Colts cut him. Because I feel like a lot of people have talked about Hines, including myself, but Hines he's not going to fill in the role for Jonathan Taylor if Jonathan Taylor goes down. I feel like Philip Lindsay, though, say what you want about him, but we've seen him get plenty of work in the past, and
Right.
maybe he wasn't like wildly efficient with everything, but he actually was decent in the past, and and he's a tough nosed runner, Philip Lindsay. So if JT goes down, is there mentality now? Knock on wood that he doesn't, but is there mentality like, hey, we got to go and get like a veteran Devonta Freeman who's a free agent or something like that? I thought Philip Lindsay was actually like a decent guy just to have just in case on the roster. I'm confused by that.
I don't understand. Like, this is a perfect situation because you could have one extra guy, and then when you're up on games, you could sit your bell cow
Yeah.
and just have a guy in there that's going to even. I mean, I understand that that is if Lindsay's a little bit small, but he gets the job done. He's had good seasons before, and without fumbling, you could put him in the whole fourth quarter if they're up by 21 points and
Yes.
just go three yards, 3 yards, kill the clock, run the ball, and keep all the touches off your bell cow. Keep him healthy when you don't need him in the game. This is very puzzling to me. So,
Yeah.
um, they released Tyson Williams. I just like throwing names in there of people that were, 1 week wonders kind of stuff. So,
Yep. Yep.
Commanders Brian Robinson, unfortunately, carjacking incident that ended up with him being shot in the butt and the lower leg. What does this mean for the Commanders' backfield? Robinson was not placed in the IR, so that opens up a window for him to return. I'm not, I guess they said that the bullet went right behind his kneecap and in his butt, places that nothing, it didn't hit any bones, didn't hit any ligaments, no tendons, no nothing, anything at all. It couldn't have been like at least the guy was a great shot where he shot him at, whoever it was. He's not going to end. I would feel terrible if this ended somebody's career on some stupid situation like that. But a couple months, I'm. What do you think this means for the backfield in Washington?
First and foremost, like I feel like not you, but like in the community, I feel like we've like brought up this news about Brian Robinson, and I'm not laughing about it. I'm almost like I feel like we didn't like take it as serious as we should have, because it wasn't a situation where he had like a freak accident or he got hurt at practice or he was messing around at home. He like legitimately got shot. Like I feel like that wasn't talked about enough. Like what happened in this situation? Like where was he? And I mean, I guess we can dig and stuff like that, but that's extremely scary because he could have walked away I mean, not playing football ever again in that sense. But in the backfield, I think McKissick's role, I think is going to be the same. It's been the last few years. I think that's why he passed on Buffalo. I think he wanted to stay with Washington because he knows exactly what his role is as a pass catcher in that offense. I think for Antonio Gibson, there's been so many bad news reports that have come out about him being on special teams now, and Brian Robinson doing well at training. So maybe that gives him a bump with the potential to not share the carries with him. But I'm not going to like overreact and say, well, Brian Robinson might not play for X amount of weeks, so now Antonio Gibson is a top 12 running back. I was just always in the for me personally, I'm curious to hear about you. I was always in the I'm not overreacting about Gibson. I'm not underreacting about him. I feel like if he falls to me in a draft, I'm fine taking him. I mean, I don't know. I was always in that middle ground for Antonio Gibson just because I mean, he's been a top 12 back the last 2 years. I'm not going to rank him there, but he's not going there in drafts. So it's almost like he's fairly, projected, and his ADP has been like fine to me. I don't know. What's your thoughts about where his stock has gone?
It's tough being in that running back sandwich where you got a guy that does goal line work and early down work, and then you also got a guy who is a reception specialist like McKissick. Now it's tough being the guy that just gets the ball between the tackles and stuff. But I mean, he runs a 4.340, a 4.39 40 or something like that at 220 pounds. He's a great running back. He's proved that he can do what running back needs to do in the NFL. I just think that Ron Rivera is an old school coach, and that this is his way of like teaching guys lessons. Because when you fumble 7 times last year, which led the NFL, and this year you go into camp and you fumble twice in a couple practices,
Yeah.
that you can't. I mean, yeah, maybe special teams teaches a guy to hold on to the football a little better. I'm not sure what Rivera's, but I don't know if all the mental damage or the making fun of Gibson and putting him on special teams and having that stuff out in the open is good for somebody. Now, are they going to try and find someone on a waiver somebody that just got cut recently? Are they going to trade for Alexander Madison, who's supposed to be on a trade block? Are they going to what's the deal
Sony
here?
Sony Michelle just got free. I mean,
Yeah, I
I I,
mean,
I like jokingly tweeted back-to-back tweets just to see what would happen yesterday, and I said right after Sony Michelle was released, I said Sony Michelle will be a Raven. Obviously, you'll talk about it soon, but that's not the case. They just picked up somebody else, and then the second one was Sony Michelle is going to be a Commander, and that to me, I don't know. Maybe it makes sense if Brian Robinson is out because I'm not going to say one is better than the other. It's not that conversation, but maybe they have a goal line guy that they want to fill in. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what they do about this.
yeah, I'm curious too. I'm a huge Gibby guy. He's probably my favorite player. In the last couple of years, he's been my favorite player in the league just because I drafted him so far down,
Oh
and
yeah,
I waited until like round 13 in a startup. Didn't pick a running back whatsoever. I gambled on Antonio Gibson, and he's paid off the last couple of years. And now it's like,
absolutely.
no, it's like it's hard not to fall in love with these players that you did research on, drafted late, kind of hit on, and then they start messing up, and you're like, come on, man, you still got it in you. You're rooting
Yeah.
for these guys, like but that's why we watch these games. It's not all about just fantasy points and stuff. It's about fun.
Yep. Yep. You are right.
So, the Commanders cut Jared Patterson, which I thought was a weird move, especially when you lose a running back. Maybe, I mean, that he must have not been doing anything in camp. So
No. Yeah.
the Cowboys cut Ben DiNucci and Cooper Rush. That's maybe they'll just love Dak that much where they can open
We
other spots. So
we got to see both those guys play in their duration for the Cowboys. I think at one point when Dak was out, both of those guys took the field, and I remember Ben DiNucci, for example. I think he was shaking the whole time, but yeah.
yeah, you are correct. The Dolphins released Sony Michel. We talked about that. Many thought that he would have a decent role in this offense. Lynn Bowden was someone that came in the NFL with a lot of pomp and circumstance kind of deal.
Yeah.
Jared Dokes, another fan favorite in rookie drafts. Mohamed Sanu was a Quandre Wright. Preston Williams was somebody that
Mhm.
until he got hurt, Preston Williams was kind of like an up and comer, and then
Yes.
he got hurt, and after that, it was kind of like just his career just kind of diminished and is fading away now. And if he doesn't catch on with somebody or do something, a good special teamer, a good wide receiver, I hope he lands somewhere. But it's amazing to see them just kind of say, "Hey, man, you're out."
Yeah, he was outperforming Parker that season that I think he tore his ACL. I'm pretty sure he was outperforming him for the fantasy world. And Lynn Bowden, I mean, he's an interesting guy to me. I'm not going to say he's going to land somewhere and be completely relevant, but he's been a kind of a gadget guy because he came into the league, or I'm not sure if he came in the league as a running back or a wide receiver, but he's had both of those designations across his career. So he's a guy that's like the Walmart version of a Debo almost.
Yeah, exactly. It is how it goes. Eagles cut quarterback Carson Strong. That was a short career. Falcons, the Ferk daddy, Anthony Firkser got cut. Keyshawn Johnson. Auden Tate was a kind of a. I mean,
Interesting.
I think everybody likes Auden Tate, just because I think that he's such a talented player, and for another guy to jump around the league all the time, it is super interesting. I don't understand how guys this talented don't make it in the NFL, and it just goes to show you that out of all the players you've seen in your high school and went on to college somewhere and never made it to the NFL because they didn't have enough talent, Auden Tate was probably the best player in this whole city or this whole area of
Yeah.
probably first team All State in a high school. Went to college, was probably the best player in his college. You know, came out here and it just doesn't make it the NFL, and it's baffling that guys this good can't stick somewhere.
I picked him up in a bunch of deeper leagues, or I tried to at least when he landed with the Falcons, just because they're so thin at wide receiver. And then when they signed Brian Edwards, right? Brian Edwards, yeah. That to me was like a weird sign because it was another bigger guy that would probably play the same sort of role on the team. So I feel like that was the first, like, I don't know how they really feel about Tate, but yeah, it's unfortunate because we've actually seen before the T Higgins and Chase days some Auden Tate Bengals games back in the day that were pretty
Right.
decent, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Jimmy Garoppolo is still a 49er. Is he just a backup? Is this extended time to trade him? Are they really? Is he really a threat to Trey Lance? Like, what's the story with Jimmy G?
I think, for me, I don't think anything was really working out to the way that they wanted it to because, if I'm the 49ers, I mean, some people said they should have just cut him. I don't think that's smart at all because he's been a guy that's been a starter in the league. He's been a playoff player for, a few years. And I think that they were smart about just not like cutting ties for nothing or just selling for, a seventh round pick or something like that, because he's been a playoff quarterback for the 49ers. So if you weigh out for me what they did, I think the 49ers are still a team that have Super Bowl aspirations. I know they have a first-year quarterback in Trey Lance as far as being a first-year starter, but this is a team that has many, many good pieces, and they've been, a team that's been fighting for, a big playoff push the last couple of years. I think that they're smart in saying, hey, we have our young guy. He is going to have the keys, but in the worst case, knock on wood scenario where he goes down, we still want to make a playoff push. So having like a no-name guy as their backup quarterback probably wouldn't have been the smartest thing. And they weren't getting what they wanted out of Jimmy Garoppolo. So they're like, hey, I don't want to sell this guy for dirt cheap. Hey, I want to make a playoff push. Might as well just keep him on the roster. That's what I think. I'm curious to hear if you think that he can steal the job from Trey Lance, but I really just think it's an insurance policy, and also like they didn't want to just give him away for nothing.
Part of it is they saved $20 million by restructuring the contract, so that's
Yeah.
one of it. But Jimmy G also said he got no trade clause, and there's a lot of things that work both ways for both parties. It wasn't just we're going to re-sign you and that was it. Jimmy G's got a lot of he solidified himself for they're not trading him unless he approves it. And I think that the 49ers have a great defense. And Trey Lance is a ball control. I mean, he had started 6 games, got 600 yards last year. He's not a throwing
Yeah.
quarterback. He's he's a ball control guy, and he could definitely do that. He's a very talented, quarterback, very talented athlete, very talented across the board, everything. But I just feel like if they have a couple injuries on defense or something goes wrong, they got to play catch up. He's not the guy that can do that. And there's a couple games where they fall behind or they, and he loses games for them. He's on a short leash right now. And I think Jimmy B, they'd say, Jimmy, go ahead, man. You're healthy now. This guy's not cutting it. He needs another year to sit down. That's what they're going to do. And it's not a bad thing. I think the guy he will have a professional, Trey Lance will have a professional career It's
Yeah.
just a matter of if he's ready yet or not. It's if he's not ready, he's not ready. And Jimmy G's, he's been in the playoffs. He's a great quarterback, so it's a good move by the 49ers, I think.
Yeah.
Where are we at now? The Giants, Joshua Corbin. I penciled him in as a sleeper to back up Saquon. Like I don't, and then they cut him today. I was kind of surprised by that move. He was doing very well in camp or in preseason. It's a surprising move on my part, but that's my evaluation. So it is what it is. The Giants obviously know a lot more than I do, and they saw a better situation. So it is what it is. Jaguars, Laquan Treadwell was cut. Laviska Shenault was dealt to the Panthers. What does this do to the Panthers Jaguars depth chart?
It's interesting because I felt like Treadwell was a guy that we forgot about because last season he had a handful of relevant games for the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence. If you look back to some of the games, he had some decent targets in and actually had some decent fantasy weeks in. Shenault, he's a guy that I always jokingly tweet, like when somebody's released or whatever, that, hey, the Bears need to go and pick him up. Might have been a slot guy with Mooney on the outside. I thought about that. In Carolina with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, I'm struggling to really figure out what that sort of opportunity actually is. But as far as the Jaguars, obviously they paid the bag for Christian Kirk, who I think has a great opportunity at hand, and is a guy that has some pretty good receiving yard upside to him. Other than that, Marvin Jones still on the team. Nobody has talked about him like one time, like ever since the season ended, but he was another guy that we've seen as an aging veteran to have some decent, like, random flex weeks for the fantasy world. Evan Ingram, who I'm not going to sell for the low for anybody in this room right now. He's on the roster. Big opportunity though for him. I know you and I both know this, but we can hate on Evan Ingram and what he did in New York, but there's a true chance that he could be like a Schultz for the Cowboys and just be the number 2 option in his offense. So I feel like I'm missing somebody in this offense though.
You had to throw it in there, didn't you?
I had to. I had to make sure that I threw it on the specific podcast. Nobody knows why, but
Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones.
Zay Jones, that's who I like. I want to say that I don't have it in front of me, but the last handful of weeks for the Raiders last season, Zay Jones was seeing like 7-8 targets. He had a massive week against the Indianapolis Colts. I think he tore them up in that specific game, Zay Jones. He actually got paid some money to go to Jacksonville. In Jacksonville, you got all these slot guys. You got all these slot guys. He is one of the only guys that can profile is a true outside receiver. Christian Kirk might be able to play that role as well, but Zay Jones is an outside receiver. I think he was like a second-round draft pick back in the day. That is a sleeper. That's a sleeper. That's a deep league sleeper because he costs you like nothing. He's probably free in redraft.
It was I traded him last year, figuring he's old, he's going to get dropped or cut or something like that. I pulled the same thing with Zach Ertz in a couple leagues where I thought these guys were going to get just kind of forgotten about, and it really came to bite me in the ass come around this year. That these guys ended up in significant parts of their offense. So
yeah,
you're welcome for the Zay Jones addition to your team, by the way. So it's
thumbs up.
Sometimes Raquel Armstead, he's gone too, and then Jets cut Tevin Coleman. Kind of surprising, but it's a good sign for the two Lightning and Thunder running backs on the team right now. Lions, Tim Boyle, bunches and bunches of Funchess is gone. Packers nobody, Panthers nobody. Kevin Harris and JJ Taylor for the Patriots. Kevin Harris is kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
Raiders, Kenyon Drake, instantaneously picked up by the Ravens. Excuse me. That's a big addition for the Ravens, who are having problems. We'll talk about that in a minute. But and then non-fantasy wise, but Alex Leatherwood to have these. I don't know if you saw that, but the 3 first-round picks that Raiders had in the last year or so, all 3 of them are gone. Or off 2 of them are in jail, and this guy is gone. Leatherwood just got let. I mean, they're paying him guaranteed money to just walk away, leave. So
paints a picture of what their the issues they've had with their organization and just making errors. So I mean, you look at them now, they put themselves in a position to be pretty competitive, I think. But you look back at some of these picks and just say, hey, like there was issues. The people that were running the ship are gone, but like, look at how bad it was that we're cutting a guy that we spent such a high capital on.
Yeah. The Rams, Kendall Blanton, he had a couple weeks last week that were fantasy relevant, got instantaneously claimed by the Commanders. Ravens, Kenyon Drake is a Raven now. The Ravens' backfield is a carnival of injuries and depth. Maybe they should change the grass or the practice field or change it to turf or something. They got to do something there because there's no reason to have that many injuries on one team. It's crazy. The Saints quarterback Ian Book, Chris Herndon, Divina Zigbo, instantaneously Zigbo got picked up by the Broncos. Abram Smith, who I figured maybe if something was going wrong, he'd be able to come in there and has a little bit of a role this year, but I was wrong again on evaluating talent, so he's gone. Kevin White, the Bears' first-round pick, he got released from injury settlement. Seahawks, nobody. Steelers, Najee Harris has a Liz Frank injury in camp. That's going to be something to monitor, but reports should be, are saying that he should be ready for week 1. Thoughts on who to grab as a speculative handcuff for Najee Harris?
So I've seen a lot of reports, and just people on Twitter talking about Jalen Warren is the guy killing it, and he's the guy to try to roster. Personally, I don't know. I really think that the Steelers might be a team that also would if knock on wood Najee goes down, try to go and grab a veteran. I can see them being that team as well. But I would say the popular name right now is Jalen Warren, but I'm not convinced that if Najee goes down, he gets that same sort of volume, is the backup. I can see them bringing in somebody else and then, 2 guys getting some sort of split. But that's kind of my thought process. I don't think we can ever count on somebody getting that like 20 plus touches a game that Najee got his rookie season.
There's not. You can't. When JT went down, if Najee goes down, if these guys go down, it doesn't matter. The other guys are backups. They're not that talented. It's not.
No.
It's not. They can get 20 touches, the same as these other guys do 25 touches a game. They're not going to produce like these elite running backs will. And so it'll be a committee. It'll turn into some kind of committee. It is what it is. I like Jalen Warren because I was lucky enough to grab him a little bit earlier than most people kind of heard about him before whatever. So I like posting the guys that I pick up on our leagues together, especially when if something happens, I get to play them against you, and that's what it's all about. So.
Hey, don't count out Derek Watt, who I think is part of the Watt family. I'm joking around. I'm just looking at the depth chart there, but I didn't realize that he was listed as a running back.
He's off the team today, so.
Yeah. There you go. Never mind.
There's only
they stuck it to the to TJ there.
Yeah, he gone. There's he was playing fullback anyway, right? He was playing H-back, not running back, right?
That's why I was like, I'm looking at ESPN their depth chart and they list him as a running back, but I'm like, I don't think he's a running back.
No, that's I think there's only the 3 guys on the backfield as of right now. So, let's see, Jay Sternberger. He was somebody that when he came in the league with the Packers, I thought he was going to pan out, and it never really happened. Texans, the sleeper chat went absolutely ape, whatever. Whenever anything Marlon Mack comes up, and when he got cut today by the Texans, it was like 100 million beep about the Marlon Mack conversation. So it's just fun how there's those kind of guys. But the Texans further entrenched Dameon Pierce as the main option at running back on that team. So thanks, Joe Castleman, for taking my guy. I appreciate it one more time.
What about what about Rex Burkhead? I made a joke earlier, and I was like, "Hey, if for some like 1 in a million chance it's not a joke, then I'll pretend I was serious." But what about Rex Burkhead having like a random like C. Patterson sort of season over with the Texans?
It's funny because we just did a, who was it? We had a in-person draft with like 70 people last weekend or so, and it was crazy. It was a madhouse inside the place, and we picked up Rex Burkhead in like round 15, and I'm like, you guess you got to do it. It is what it is. But if something happens to Pierce, I mean, all of a sudden, Rex Burkhead is just it is what it is. He's proved that he can do it before too. He's a hard-nosed, all-around good football player. He's getting older, but he can still get the job done. So it's really, I mean, we all make fun of it and like, oh, what if Rex Burkhead? It's kind of like, the guys go out drinking and they vote for this guy and, all of a sudden he wins kind of thing. Like I could see it happening. So
Week 16, it's an asterisk, but 22 for 149 and 2 touchdowns this past season.
That's why he's still on the team. There's no doubt that there's no doubt at all that he's a talented running back. So it is what it is, man. Those guys he's been around, he's stuck around this long for a reason. So Titans, nobody important. Vikings third round pick Kellen Mond was released by the Vikings after a poor preseason showing. He had a bad game the other day. He had one really nice pass, but other than that, that was about it. The writing was on the wall when Minnesota traded from Nick Mullins that Mond was on the way out. Sean Mannion, Albert Wilson, he gone. So all right, that's about it for the teams. So what I wanted to see if like I want to see if you can give me like a couple players that, because it's redraft season right now, a couple guys that are beyond like round 12, like pick 144ish, kind of like that. Like some guys you think that could be difference makers in a redraft this year, and possibly even, someone in the dynasty teams people could pick up now that, they're probably on people's teams in deep dynasty leagues, and I'm sure they're on people's rosters in, and most people who've done redraft stuff right now, because especially where their ADP is. But like I want to talk about like guys like Isaiah Likely, the Ravens tight end. He really could be like the number 3 receiver in Baltimore. I honestly think that there's this big talk about who's going to be the number 2 receiver, who's going to take that number 2 receiver role. Isaiah Likely's already killing it in camp in the preseason. I think that he could be the number 3 receiver in this offense. What do you think about that?
With Likely, seeing the clips of him playing, it was impressive, because you don't see, it wasn't like he was just like scoring touchdowns or he was getting like these like 5-yard passing plays. Like he was extending the field a little bit. And I feel like that's something that stands out about a tight end, is a guy that can make that like 15, 20-yard catch down the field and get targeted and handle some volume. So for redraft, I don't know. I kind of struggle with Baltimore, just because I feel like we love Mark Andrews, right? We love Rashad Bateman. And then after that, you're like, who else is going to step up? Is it going to be Devin Duvernay? Is it going to be, you can go down the depth chart there. I thought like Wallace was going to be a guy that was going to pop up or something like that. But I don't know. I guess the fact that we don't know who the third option is kind of opens it up for anybody. Likely would have to probably be your like last pick, though, I would assume, in a redraft league, if you're taking that shot.
Yeah, like James Prochet had his name's jumped around a little bit as far as being the number 3 wide receiver. Tylan Wallace, him and they were kind of like, who's going to be that guy? Who's going to be that person that ends up being the number 2 or the go-to guy when everything else falls apart. But it very well could be a 2 tight end set that wins this job. So
so I'm looking at Fantasy Pros ADP. So overall PPR ADP for redraft, and I've talked about both of these guys plenty of times, but not super deep. But they're going pretty deep in drafts. 2 guys at 150, Devontae Parker, and then at 163, Jahan Dotson. And it's on Fantasy Pros. They're not like the deepest of deep name guys, but I think Parker, for me, when healthy, we've seen in 2019, he had the massive receiving yard upside. He scored a bunch of touchdowns. I'm pretty sure he was like wide receiver. I don't know. He was like top 15 wide receiver at that time. Even this past season, he had a couple weeks in his short window of health in Miami where he was a top 20 wide receiver for those specific weeks. And I feel like he brings to the Patriots a bit of like what they wanted out of Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, is a guy that can stretch the field a little bit more. And I think he's more of a touchdown threat than Jacoby Myers. So I feel like if he's healthy, he's got the opportunity to be the wide receiver 1 in fantasy points, just because I feel like he brings more upside than Jacoby Myers. And Jahan Dotson is my other guy. Love Dotson. Like last year, my guy that was not the obvious like Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase was Elijah Moore. I had the jersey before the season started and everything, and I had this faith that Elijah Moore was going to have redraft relevance, and it only happened for a short window of time. for Elijah Moore, but he balled out during that window. But this year, it's Jahan Dotson for me. He was a first-round draft pick. I understand it's Carson Wentz, but I feel like the opportunity is there for him to be the guy behind McLaurin. And he was extremely productive at Penn State. He averaged like 98.5 yards per game. He was top 20 in receiving yards, had a ton of volume, and Matt Harmon's reception perception graded out Dotson to be the best hands of this class. And I really like him as a player. And I know it's Carson Wentz, and I know there's question marks for Washington, but I have a feeling that Dotson, maybe it's the second half of redraft season, is going to be a guy that turns into a flex play. And I think that's what you're looking for out of these late round guys, is a guy that my wide receivers are banged up. I have bye weeks. I need somebody to fill in, or I need somebody to have a flex play. We're probably not going to find at pick, 150 on the next, Cooper Cup or something like that. But I feel like if you can find somebody that you can stream or you can use in the flex position, like a Dotson, I think then it's worth it.
Yeah, I got Isaiah McKenzie and David Njoku. They've kind of shot up the. I just looked now up until like 2 weeks ago. These guys have shot up the a lot of. I'm not sure where they're at on Fantasy Pros, but they're like shooting stars right now in the rankings. So
McKenzie's pretty low right now for them, which I'm pretty surprised at. For him, Njoku, I'd say is around where I said Parker was at, so maybe not like the hottest of takes, but just depends on where you're looking.
So just some commissioner questions real fast, because it's I run a lot of leagues. I'd like to see what other people think about. What's if you're starting a new dynasty league, what's the perfect roster size? What's the starters and bench? The scoring systems, number of teams. Like, if you're putting a league together, what would you do to start a brand new dynasty league? How would you set it up if you were the commissioner?
I would say we can break down the very specific scoring settings in the bench spots and everything like that. I always stick to PPR, which you and I say this and we're like, well, of course you do, but some leagues don't. Some leagues have half point PPR focuses. I still love PPR. I like to have more starting spots than the average fantasy league, because I feel like it makes you think a little bit more. It makes you, build a better roster. Like I'm in a dynasty league right now where it's a dynasty league, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex, that's fine. But I'm also in other leagues where there's 3 running backs and 4 wide receivers and a tight end and 2 flex, like crazy amount of starting spots. And I kind of like that, because I feel like you try to build a better team. I feel like there's more scoring, so it's more fun. So, that last example is not what I like to do, but I do like to have a couple flex guys in there and try to have a bigger roster when it comes to dynasty. Redraft, obviously completely different, but more starting spots, more scoring. I do like that.
Did you ever hear about these all flex leagues where you do nothing but you draft a team and it's nothing but flex? You could play literally 9 wide receivers or 8 running backs if you wanted to, and nothing else on there. What do you think about those leagues?
I feel like that would be a league that I would want to be a redraft, in all honesty. I know there's dynasties like that, but I feel like if I do something like that, I'm only doing one of them, and I'm not doing anything even close to that outside of it, because then I feel like it kind of strays away from the things you get out of your typical fantasy league. You have to completely shape how you want to build a team and how you view players in a different way, and it's going to be different, person to person. So I don't hate it, but I wouldn't do more than one of those that are like wild like that, because then I feel like my mindset for fantasy is a little too, bouncing around the place.
Yeah, it's almost like cheating for me when somebody could just really rat hole one position and just call it a day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's so no, I'm not a big fan of it either. So I get it. What do you do about inactive owners? This is a situation where guys are starting up leagues again. They got to kind of pick the people who are in. They're going to be in their leagues this year. Guys who don't respond to trades are in too many leagues, and yours doesn't seem to be their priority. Hard to get a hold of, kind of stuff. Like, what do you do with guys? I mean, how long? How much is too long to keep a guy like that in your league for?
I think the commissioner's got to be the one that steps in for it, because if I give somebody, I'm just, a normal person in the league, I don't run anything, but if I'm the one giving a guy a hard time, that's one thing. But when the commissioner, in private speaks to somebody and says, "Hey, like, we're trying to have an active league and we're trying to do, have guys that are able to send trades back and forth and be active and make sure they're checking their lineups." I feel like the commissioner's got to step in and talk about that. Also, because like you said, that guy might be in 50 leagues and your league means nothing to them. But everybody else in the league, you might have guys that this is their only league. So how is that fair to them? You want everybody to enjoy it. Everyone's not going to win. Everybody's not going to win money. People are going to be disappointed about performances. But at the end of the day, some people might be in 2 leagues or 3 leagues versus somebody that's in 20. So if you are reaching out to somebody, they're not responding to stuff, then at some point, it might be your best friend, it might be your wife, your brother, whatever. You just got to cut ties and make it not personal and just say, "Hey, the intent of the league is this." You're kind of straying away from that, and it's affecting other people's experience, because at the end of the day, as a commissioner, you should want everybody's experience to be good, right? You want people to stay around in a league for a decade or more.
On the opposite side of the spectrum, how much grief do you take from people who before you give them the boot? Someone who, like, every time you do anything, every trade that happens, every this and that, they're MF and the commissioner about why'd you let that go through or what's going on there. How much how much grief do you take from someone before you say, "Listen, man, this league's just not fun for me," and you're not even making you're disrupting it for everybody else too. Like, when do you give someone the boot as far as that goes? Like, when you got to say how many warnings you give someone before you really kind of say it's not working out, man, go find somewhere else to play it.
Yeah, I think anytime that a league turns into to drama, or a league turns into people not being happy, then you have to have your 1 or 2 conversations, but you also don't want to like lose the league. So if there's one person causing issues, would you rather have tough conversations and move on from that one person, or would you rather have like half the league being upset and now half the league is gone saying, "Hey, I don't want to deal with this stuff." I left the league like 2 years ago. That was my favorite league, but there was just so much drama in the league. There was people fighting all the time. We had like people like legitimately fighting about stuff, and I was one of them. And there was just like back and forths, and things being too personal, and the commissioner never really stepped in, and he never really stopped things from progressing. And you have to not take a side all the time as a commissioner. You kind of just have to like lay down like what's the line we're not supposed to cross. And if one guy continues to cross the line, I think you as a commissioner, you have to say, "Hey, there's 12 people in this league. I want to keep the 10. I'm staying, so I'm one of them. I want to keep the 10. I'm going to get rid of this guy versus half the league's gone because of this guy causing drama." It's just bigger picture.
Yeah, I've only left one dynasty league. A lot of good people in the league, family, friends, all that stuff. But they reversed the trade, and then kind of said it was unfair, and then it ended up being where if the trade would have went through by now, I would have got smoked on the trade. So don't
Yeah.
that's why trade reversals never go through. It's one of the only time will tell. It's not up to anybody. Nobody knows more than anybody else. Just let everything go through. It plays itself out. It is what it is. That's I'm still friends with all the guys. It is what it is. It's bygones are bygones. But sometimes you just gotta, be in leagues that are just fun. It's not fun fight with everybody all the time. So
No.
it is what it is. All right. So we're going to evaluate a team right now. We do this during the offseason. People were building their teams. So now a lot of teams are kind of set. The 30-man rosters have been done. Rookie drafts have been done. So we're going to evaluate a team after the rookie drafts, after the 30-man cuts have been done. What are the biggest needs for the team? Who are the keep, trade, cut guys? Who would you trade to improve this team? And what would you send away to do it, kind of thing? Is this a rebuild or remodel is really the question here. This is a 12-team Dynasty Superflex PPR, 0.75 tight end premium, 10 starters, a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, 2 flexes, a super flex spot, and then 20 bench spots with no limits on any position. So you could have 17 quarterbacks if you wanted to. Pretty much normal scoring with bonuses for long plays. It's kind of almost a carbon copy to the league that me and Nick are in, so he should be pretty familiar with the scoring rules. And then this guy has, as far as future picks are concerned, he's got a rookie, a 23 second, 2 23 thirds, no first, and then a fourth and a fifth, and then all picks are available after that. But he's got everything available in 2024, 2025, all that kind of stuff. But you can only trade 2 years down the line, so 23 and 24 are only available for him. So this is, let me share my screen here to all the friendly viewers out there. And share screen. So here's the team we're talking about. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. He's got Carson Wentz as his quarterback, Najee Harris and Joe Mixon, great backfield, Jamar Chase, Michael Pittman, Brandon Cooks, Mark Andrews is number 1 tight end, Hunter Renfrow, Zach Ertz, Isaiah McKenzie is in his flex spot right now. And then he's got his bench consists of Jimmy Garoppolo, Sean Mannion, Sam Howell, Cam Newton. And then that's it for his quarterbacks. He doesn't have it. So really, he's only got one quarterback on his team in reality, unless Jimmy Garoppolo takes over his team or, it's a bad situation here. His other backups, he's got Cam Newton also. Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, Giovanni Bernard, Rex Burkhead, we just talked about, Justin Jackson, who got cut today, Jamar Jefferson, third wheel in Detroit, Jake Funk, Mark Ingram, who you like, who I don't think ever has a role again in the history of the NFL, Albert Wilson, nobody, Devontae Parker, who I think will have a pretty decent role in New England, Josh Reynolds, and Keel Harry, who's hurt for the first couple months of the season. Anthony Schwartz, kind of a fan favorite, waiting for him to kind of bust out one of these years. Great athlete. I mean, superb runner, super fast guy. We'll see what happens in Cleveland. Chris Olave, Christian Watson. These are his rookie picks coming up now. And then he's got Logan Thomas and Gerald Everett as his other tight end situations here. What do you think about this team? What's some situations? First of all, is this a rebuild or remodel team? Is this guy ready to win right now? I'm going to say this: he won the championship last year. In a surprising fashion, he won the championship because he had a awesome game by Jamar Chase in the championship game where he scored like 85 points by himself. So it kind of, I don't know how he got there. It was kind of like my team in your league, in our league, where it's just by luck he got in there and then everything went right in the championship game. So what would you do to fix this team?
So he doesn't have a second quarterback for his super flex, right?
He does not have a second quarterback for a super flex. So he's going to get a 0-1 week at this point in time. I was nice enough to send him Ryan Tannehill for a Chris Olave, just if he wanted to take that. But so far he doesn't respond to me. So we'll see what happens.
It's strange because you have you have some to me it feels like you got this weird mix of I got some good dynasty building blocks. I have some win now pieces because like Michael Pittman Jr. I think I'm a big Michael Pittman Jr. guy. I think he's a good building block piece to have. Obviously with Jamar Chase as well, but then your third guy is Brandon Cooks, who I like a lot, but obviously not your long-term play. Running backs room is solid just for those two guys with Najee and Joe Mixon. He doesn't have much depth at all after that for the running back position. So for those guys on a bye week or knock on wood, an injury, he's kind of in a bad spot right now. Unless, like I said before, Rex Burkhead has that Patterson season. But I don't know, Carson Wentz being his only QB that's starting, I'm concerned. I'm concerned with his competitiveness in this coming season because I think he's got some great pieces, but no depth, and no two starting quarterbacks. So this reminds me of, I had issues in your league, in all honesty, in your league, trying to pick out a direction I wanted to go because I had like a mix, and I still do. Like I have a mix of like these guys can win me a championship this season, versus like, hey, I got like a group of guys that are going to be good, but they're not like win now pieces. They're good dynasty pieces. So I think he might have to determine like, hey, how do I want to shape this team? Because, if it ends up him wanting to build some depth, I mean, Olave on the bench, you can take a guy like Christian Watson, who I don't like at all personally, and you could probably get a decent return for somebody that's a Packers fan or somebody that wants a young receiver. You can take Jamar Chase, which, somebody would say, hey, if you're rebuilding, it'd be crazy to take Jamar Chase and sell him. But knowing that the capital is so high for him, you can end up having 3 or 4 pieces that end up being very useful for your dynasty team here. But Joe Mixon, can you go a little bit younger? Can you get like I don't know. Can you get like a ETN plus or something like that for Joe Mixon? Will somebody trade like a Brees Hall plus? I don't know. You'd have to kind of fill out, survey the room, but I'd be trying to take probably a piece or two here and breaking it down into more useful pieces versus like the top heaviness of I don't know, maybe Jamar Chase, maybe Joe Mixon are two, guys that I feel like you can fill your rosters out with. But what are you thinking? Are you same page? Are you thinking he should keep some of these pieces? Or are you thinking I don't know?
My theory on this is when you have building block players, you trade away players to get players like that. It's very hard for me to let go of
Yeah.
Jamar Chases. It's very hard for me to let go of Chris Olave's. It's very hard for me to let go of I running backs. You know how I feel about running backs. I can give one craps about. I would trade both away right now if I had the opportunity.
Yeah.
Uh, Andrews is somebody I'd probably hold on to too. But if you can get something for Zach Ertz or Gerald Everett right now is kind of a popular name. Logan Thomas is hurt for the first couple weeks, but he's you can get rid of all 3 of those tight ends and just have any backup behind Mark Andrews on the waiver wire. Who cares? Just someone filling for that one bye week. You need somebody.
Yeah.
If Mark Andrews got hurt, these guys aren't. I mean, maybe Zach Ertz might fill in a spot. Suck up some.
Think I might have lost you. May have lost John here. May have lost John, but we're still trucking away here. See if John gets back on the stream talking about Bird's team. If not, we'll cut things there. Let's see. Maybe I'll be able to pull up this team. There we go. Yeah, so I do agree with what John said. At the end of the day, with trying to keep those major pieces, I was just thinking, hey, if I can turn, I don't know, some of those into 4 players that are of relevance, that's one thing. I think Joe Mixon's a guy that I would think about um, off hauling to potentially get younger. Plus, I mean, can you get like a running back plus a wide receiver to fill in for you? Can you get a quarterback, a cheap like Jared Goff plus a running back for Joe Mixon? I mean, those are 2 interesting things to think about as well when it comes to building this team. I think that's would probably be one of my first moves. Can I get a younger running back that obviously isn't that expensive, plus like a Jared Goff, a Davis Mills? You need a second quarterback on this team. That's for sure. Um, Zach Ertz to a contender. Like I really like Zach Ertz, and I feel like I'm a contender in some other leagues, but to me, I feel like he be a guy that, knowing I have Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz shouldn't really matter to me at the end of the day. So if I can go and grab him or grab some value for him, I feel like I can address some other needs on this specific team. Renfro kind of depends on how the room feels about him. Like me, I'm not paying for him, but other guys still believe that he's going to be a top 15, 20 wide receiver just based off of what he did last season. But with Darren Waller and Devonta Adams, I'm not, entirely sure about that. Otherwise, on the bench.
Sorry, I don't know what happened on that. I don't know why my entire internet
Oh
went
no,
off for a
you're good.
second there, but it is what it
I
is.
was like, I don't know if I froze or you froze, but I started improvising and speaking some more about this team though. But I was saying I do agree with what you said about some of those staple pieces on this roster with the Jamar Chase and Mark Andrews and I don't think I'd move both of those running backs, but I was just saying like if I'm in desperation mode for a quarterback, I wonder if he can like. For Mixon, if somebody like really likes Mixon, because there's those Mixon truthers out there. I wonder if he can do like I don't know, Mixon for like Goff and a young running back that is not expensive. I don't know, just to like get that second quarterback.
Yeah, that's if he can, I mean, Wentz is not really that valuable to even trade away with a piece to kind of even upgrade. And then even then, you still only have a one quarterback situation. So the thing is, he just won this league, so he's got his league paid for the next 2 or 3 years. Probably 3.5 years is kind of what that comes down to. So that being said, I would kind of say, hey, I'll try and give get Jimmy away, try and trade Jimmy G away for a pick to somebody who's got Trey Lance.
Yes,
Sam Howell's not doing so bad in
No.
Washington, but he's not going to start for half the season. I'm not sure he's the future of Washington anyway. So if somebody wants to maybe take a chance on Sam Howell, trade all these guys away. You're not going to get much for Jamar Jefferson. You're not going to get much for Giovanni Bernard. I mean, none of his running backs are really worth anything as far as that goes. Hunter Renfrow, he's getting a little bit older. Get rid of him. Brandon Cooks is great. You can get a lot for Brandon Cooks right now, especially like a second-round draft pick maybe, or somebody might get the next guy who's contending in this league might give you a first for Brandon Cooks, a late first, something like that. These are spots where you could pick up a quarterback next year in a super flex, or then next year trade away Najee and a couple thirds or a couple seconds, and you move up to the middle of the first round to get your quarterback of the future who may be starting. There's a lot of good quarterbacks coming out next year's class. So Michael Pittman is like I left off on Michael Pittman. I think he's somebody that is. I think people are a little bit exaggerating what he's going to do this year. I think he already peaked. You know what you're getting with Michael Pittman. He's not going to be, I don't think he's a wide receiver 1 in reality. I think he's going a high wide receiver 2, but there's 100 of those, and there's more up. The receivers are coming in the NFL right now from day one and starting out being great, being fantastic. So I would Christian Watson, like you said, a Green Bay Packers fan. Anybody that would take Christian Watson, I would trade that for a second round pick if I can possibly get it. Or I'd spam the league. This is what what I do. I spam the league on every possible person I can. I'll send the same trade to everybody out there, and somebody else, people counter. People say no. People, the worst they're going to do is going to say no. Spam the league with something that the most you can get. And then if it doesn't go through, drop it down, drop your price a little bit. Keep spamming the league, keep spamming the league. If you want to get this done, it's going to take a lot of draft picks in the future and keeping your core players to win. But I think right now, if he keeps Jamar Chase, Chris Olave, and Mark Andrews, and their running backs, I'm not sure this might be the last year for Joe Mixon. And Najee is, I think he's already with the workload he's getting, he's not going to last very long. So I would try to sell Najee now for maybe a couple first. This guy could rebuild his team really fast in the draft next year if he got rid of a bunch of players.
Yeah, and like you said,
so I'm not sure player for.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say,
player for player. I don't think I want. All right, your turn.
I think I was freezing. No, you're good. You're good.
I think player for player, I don't want those trades player for player. I want picks. I want to get younger on this team. I want to be a younger contender with younger players. So I think at this point in time, I got a couple years to recoup my money, and I want to get younger and start from scratch it's okay. Jamar Chase is going to be here for a long time. Chris Olave is going to be here for a long time. Mark Andrews is still 26 years old. He's going to be here for a long time. Sell this whole team. Get rid of them all. Get rid of everything. Do what you can. Who cares if you go win whatever this year? It doesn't matter. It's free. It's a free year. I know people don't want to do that, and but I wouldn't do it right now. I'd wait till in season when these guys are starting to have good weeks, and when you go 0-4 and 0-5, then say, hey, Najee had 200 yards and two touchdowns and 5 receptions. Hey, who wants Najee Harris? Dangle him to the whole league. Somebody's going to pay 2 firsts for him. Whoever's got 2 firsts or 3 firsts or whatever, let him go. So
Yeah, especially
that's
with a guy like Zach Ertz who might be the number 2 target until DeAndre Hopkins comes back. So you're getting 6 weeks of him getting the second most targets from Kyler, and you can capitalize on that. And then you're going to get, like you said, Hunter Renfrow. He's not the youngest guy in the league. Obviously, he's not 30, but he just had a top 12 season this past year. And you're going to have people that say, hey, he just did. He's probably still like that good. I mean, you like you said, the big thing you said was spam the league. I said it in a nicer way. I said survey the room, but still you'll find some people that like really want these guys. I'm a sucker for Brandon Cooks. If I'm in the league and he puts them on the block, I'm sending an offer. So you'll always have guys that want specific pieces.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we kind of said enough about this. Nick, just kind of see your way out here. Tell everybody, what's going on, where you're at, what the story is with you, and all of your awesome stuff on the Twitter and the TikTok and all the rest of the community, where everybody can find you at.
Sure. You can find all my content on Twitter at P2W Fantasy. Again, like I said at the beginning of the show, I try to diversify my content. So I'll have, live streams. I'll have just regular audio podcasts, short videos, threads, articles, infographics, just random stuff all the time, just to for my own mental sake to mix things up. But also I feel like I'll hit different types of an audience by doing different stuff. But I'm on TikTok. I put stuff on Facebook and YouTube and Snapchat, everywhere. But all of my work is always on Twitter. So go follow me at P2W Fantasy to find all my stuff.
Very good. Thank you very much for being on here. You can find me on the Twitter machine at JohnMcGlynn75. My commissioner evaluation is on iTunes, a couple other spots too, but mainly I listen to iTunes or I podcast, whatever it's called. That's where I listen to most of my stuff at. So it'll be out tomorrow morning or later tonight on your ride to work. You can listen to it at 1.5 or 1.275. That's always a debate what speed people listen to podcasts on, but 1.25 is my speed, so I get a lot of them in all the time. And thanks for joining us on the Commissioner Evaluation Show. Nick, thanks for making it awesome. You guys, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Later.